Hi, my name's Stuart Lynch, and this is the fifth video in the MapKit for SwiftUI series. In this video, we're going to find out how to select markers on our map and display more information about the marker, as well as present a look-around preview if one is available. Now remember, there is a table of content links in the video description below, so if you want to jump to a specific location or point in the video, you can do that. I love getting your feedback, so tap the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video and leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the video and ring that bell to get notifications of new videos. And if you want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. If you're working along with me, you can continue on from the source code that you completed in the last video. However, if you're just jumping in here and you want to work along, you can download the completed project from my GitHub repository and make sure that you're downloading the branch from video 4. You can see that I've already started a new branch now for this video, and the completed source code for this video will be in that branch. Links to both branches are in the description. Now, before I start with the major topic for today's video, I want to make a couple of small changes that'll improve the user experience. When we add a new destination, we tap in the text field in the Destinations List view. I want to turn off any auto correction, and I can do that with a single view modifier, which is auto correction disabled. And then in the OK button's action, I want to trim any empty white spaces before or after. So all I have to do here to the string is to provide a destination name here where we're trimming characters in white spaces and new lines. If I open the Destination Locations map view now, I want to disable autocorrect in the search field here, and I also want to turn off auto capitalization here. So at the text field, after we've set the style, I'll set auto correction disabled, and then I'm going to also set text input auto capitalization to be never. And we'll be using these modifiers in the next view that I want to create as well. First though, I need a way to select a marker and know which empty place mark it refers to. But there's one more thing I want to fix. After we do a search on our screen, we want the visible region to be focused around the search results. In the onSubmit function, after you've set the search text back to an empty string, set the camera position to automatic. When you select a marker, we want to store the associated place mark in a state property that will trigger a modal sheet to display more information about that marker. So let's start here. We'll create a state property called selectedPlaceMark, and it's going to be an optional empty place mark because none will be selected when the view loads. Next, we can add a selection argument to our map view that is bound to that new state property. Well, when we tap on one of our markers, we want that selection to be set to the corresponding marker's empty place mark. And that's this entire section here where we have an if-else clause. So we'll need to first enclose that within a group, and then we can apply a tag that sets the place mark when that is selected. Now, if you select one of the markers, it expands so that we know it's been selected. Tapping another one expands that one. If you tap somewhere off the screen or off of a place mark, the place mark gets back to nil and the marker shrinks back. Well, what we want to do is present a modal sheet when the marker is selected so that we can trigger that sheet based on the optional selected place mark because it's an identifiable object. So we'll attach that to the map where we have a sheet where the item is bound to the selected place mark, and that's going to give us a selected place mark that we can use to present our view. Now I'm going to be creating a specific view for this, but just to test, let's see if we can present the place mark's name in a text view. And I'm going to set the presentation detents here. It's an array to simply just one where it's a height, or I'll specify the height of 450, so it doesn't take over the whole screen. If I test now, I see that it's displaying the content perfectly. Let me do a search first now to get some of those red place marks displayed. If I tap on one of them, it's displayed. It's great, I see that too. So next we'll need to create the view to use instead of that single text view. And in this view, we're going to be able to update the name and address properties if we've selected a yellow marker, which is the one that's already in our database, or perhaps we want to remove it from the collection. But we'll also want to be able to, if we select a red marker, perhaps change the name and address and add it to the selection for our destination. This means we'll need to pass in our new view's two properties, the selected place mark and the destination. The view that presents the information is going to be shared by this destination view as well as the first view that we haven't coded yet. So I'm going to create a new group and I'm going to call it Shared Views. Inside there, I'm going to create a new SwiftUI view and I'm going to call it LocationDetailView. I'm going to need to import MapKit and I'll have to import SwiftData as well. And since this is going to be presented as a modal sheet, I want to be able to create a button that will dismiss the sheet. So I'm going to create an environment variable to access the dismiss function so that I can then call this dismiss function. Next, we'll create the two properties that will be passed in from that previous view, one for the destination and one for the selected place mark. And I'm going to make both of these properties optional because, as I said, we're going to be using this one on our first map view, which is going to be displaying our current location, and the trip destination won't be known. So both will be optional. A destination, which is an optional destination, and a selected place mark, which is an optional empty place mark. Now, if we want to be able to update the name and address properties of our place mark, we'll need to create two state properties for that. One for name, which is a string, so we'll make it an empty string, and another one for address, another empty string. We'll want to be able to update a selected place mark if either one of those properties is changed. So I'm going to make my code more readable by creating a computed property that I'm going to call isChanged, and it's a Boolean value. And that Boolean value is first going to use a guard check to unwrap the selected place mark and return false. If it fails, well, it should never fail, but I need to do this because I don't want to do a force unwrap. And then we can return the case where the name is not equal to the selected place mark name or the address is not equal to the selected place mark address. It means that any change to either of those two fields will make isChanged true. Now, as we build out our view, if we want to present some mock data in our preview, I'm going to need to do a change in our preview to fetch a single destination and one of our place marks. Well, we're going to do the same thing that we did in the destination locations map view. So I'm going to open that view up to return there. And in the preview macro, I'm going to copy these three lines. And then I'll paste them into the preview macro here. And this will fetch our mock data's Paris location, since there is only one. And we can make sure that that's assigned to the destination. But we know that our mock data has an array of place marks, so we can get the first one and assign it to the selected place marks property. Then we can return the locations detail view using both of those fetched values. So let's design the view. When the view appears, if we're coming from our destination view, then we'll want to assign the values of that selected place mark to the name and address properties. So we'll create an onAppear block. And inside there, I'll use an ifLet to unwrap the optional selected place mark. And at the same time, check that destination is not nil. And then if that's the case, we can assign the selected place mark properties to the name and address state properties. So now we can start to design the view. Within the body, replace the text view with a VStack. and then add some padding to the VStack. Within there, create an HStack, and then add a spacer to push it all up to the top. And then as the first element in the HStack, create a VStack with alignment leading. Within the inner VStack, create two text fields for the title and the address. The first text field will have the string name, and it'll be bound to our name state property. And I'm going to set the font to title. The second text field will be for the address, bound to our address state property. But I want to set the axis to vertical so that it can expand for longer addresses. Then I'm going to apply a text field style of rounded border to the entire VStack. Note that each time the view appears, you may see a different name and address appearing in the view. And that's because the placemarks array is not sorted, so you'll get a random selection each time. Below this, I want to present a button only if we've edited those values, which means that if change must be true, and I want that button to have a title key of update. For the action, I'll set the optional selected placemark name to the state name value, and let's trim any white space from the name. And I'm going to do the same for the selected placemark address. And then to push this button to the trailing edge, I'll set a frame where I set the max width to infinity and the alignment to trailing. And again, I'll set the button style to bordered. Now, as the second element in the HStack, I'm going to add a spacer. And then I'm going to create a button with a label that is an image using the system image of xmark.circle.fill. I'll set the image scale to large, and then set the foreground style to gray. Then for the action, call the dismiss function. So this will dismiss the modal sheet that's being presented. Below this, I want to create a button that will either allow me to add or remove a placemark from the destination set of placemarks. So below that first HStack, create another one. And then add a spacer to push the content to the right. First, we'll need to see if we're coming from our destination view, so we can use an if-let to unwrap it. Next, to make my code more readable, I'm going to create a computed property called inList, and I simply check to see if the selected placemark is not nil, and at the same time, the selected placemark's destination is not nil. This means that we are at a destination and the selected placemark has already been added. Then I can create a button. The label will be conditional based on inList. So I'm going to create a label, and then if inList is true, it will say remove, else it'll be add. And then for the label, I can add a system image that again is also conditional based on inList, and it will be minus.circle if it is, and plus.circle if it isn't. And then let me set the button style to bordered prominent this time, and I'll apply a tint that's conditional based again on inList, so it'll be red if it is, and green if it's not. And I'm also going to disable the button for either two cases where the name is empty or it's changed. For the action, we can unwrap the selected placemark with an if-let, and then if the selected placemark's destination is nil, we can append it to the destination's placemarks. Else, we can set the selected placemarks destination to nil, which will remove it from its set. And then we simply dismiss. So we can return now to the destinations map view. And then I can replace the temporary text view in the sheet call with a call to our new locations detail view. And I'll pass in the destination and the selected placemark. So in our preview, let's select a marker like the Louvre. Let me edit the name, and I see the update button appears. Now it looks like I've put it in the wrong location. I'll fix that in just a minute. Anyway, I still can update it and close, dismiss the modal, and I see that the marker has been updated. Let me select it again, and I notice that it shows delete and the button, because this is one of our Paris placemarks. So let me click to remove it, and the modal dismisses, and you see it's been removed from the view. So let's do a search. I'm going to search for museums. Let me select this one, and the view appears with the add button. So let me tap on the add button. Well, for some reason, my preview crashes, and to be honest with you, right now I don't know why. If I can figure this out, I'll provide an update in a subsequent video. However, we can still test this out without actually running on the simulator. I can open the Start tab view and start from there, and I'll select the Destination tab, and you'll see the markers for Paris, and I'll do another search for museums, and I'll select one, and the Add button's there. If I tap on Add, it gets added. No crash. So let's just return to the locations detail view though now and move that update button into the VStack where it should be. The last thing we want to do is to provide a look around preview if there is one for the selected placemark. So create a state property called Lookaround Scene, and that's going to be an optional MK Lookaround Scene, the MapKit Lookaround Scene. Then outside of the body, we're going to create a new function, and I call that function FetchLookaroundPreview. And it's going to make an asynchronous call, so we have to mark it as being async. Inside the body of the function, I'm going to use an if-let to unwrap the selected placemark. And then I'm going to set any previous scene that we may have had to nil. I'll create a lookaround request from the MK Lookaround request struct, passing in the coordinate of the selected placemark. And then you can try and await the lookaround request.scene and apply it to your lookaround's state property. Well, this function needs to be called whenever our view appears, and it's asynchronous. So we could use an onAppear block and add it there, but we'd need to add a task unit of work. But we can combine both this, the onAppear, and the task unit of work with a task that specifies an ID property, which is some equitable object that's going to change. And our view is initialized with a selected placemark that gets changed from optional to non-optional. So we'll create that task with the ID associated with the selected placemark, and then we can await the fetch lookaround preview. So all we have to do now is to present it in our view. Well, not all sites will have a preview though, so we may get back nil. And in that case, I'm going to display a content unavailable view. So between the two H stacks, I'm going to use an if-let to unwrap the lookaround scene. Now, if it's not nil, then we'll present a lookaround view where the initial scene is our lookaround scene. Then I'll set the frame to a height of 200 and add some padding. Else, it must be nil, so I'll create a content unavailable view, and I'll provide the string no preview available, and a system image of i.flash. And you should see in the preview then either a preview or a content unavailable view. And by tapping on the live preview button in the preview, it will randomize the place mark that's being presented to you. And sometimes you'll see the unavailable view if there was no preview. So let's return to the destination locations map view. I can tap on any of these markers and see that there is a preview. And I forgot to mention that if you tap on the preview, you get the full look around view. You can also search for a location, and those that have previews will display as well. Well, that's it for now. In the next video, we'll learn how we can, instead of searching for locations, simply find one on the map that we want and tap on the map to set the marker. That way, if your search places a marker without a look-around preview, you may be able to delete it and find a location close by that does offer the preview. If you're enjoying this series, please give the video a thumbs up and leave me a comment. And if this series is not yet completed, be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you're notified when new videos are available. Otherwise, continue on with the series by checking out the next one in the playlist.